Hi there, I am Matt. I'm an applications engineer with Hartwig, and today we are starting a series on the lathe made by Okuma. This particular lathe that we're going to be working on is going to be an LB3000EX2. This machine is an MYW model. That means that this machine has milling, that's what the M stands for. It has Y-axis on the turret, and it also is equipped with a sub-spindle. That's what the W stands for. This particular machine is equipped with an OSP-P300L control. In this video, we're going to be going over the basic layout on this control, going button by button and what each button does and what function it performs. The first thing we're going to be covering are our mode selection keys. That is going to be these 8 keys up here. The first 3 are our operation mode keys. The first one is auto operation. This is where you're going to be performing automated operation. Say you're running your program, watching your loads and your distance to go. Next is going to be your manual data input, or MDI. This is where you can manually input G and M codes to perform specific machine operations. And third is going to be your manual key. In your manual key is where you can jog the machine and perform manual machine operations. The next set of keys are your data setting mode keys. The first of the data setting mode keys are your main operation key. This will always default your screen back to your main operation screen that displays your program, your distance to go, and additional information in this upper right-hand corner. Next is your edit auxiliary key. It can also be thought of as your file management key. In here, you can send and receive programs and do background edit. Next is our tool data key. Inside here, we manage our tool offsets and manage tools. In here, you can also utilize functions such as tool life management. Next, we have our parameters. Inside our parameters key is a lot of our machine settings. And last is our MacMan key. Inside MacMan is data collection, alarm history, and productivity information. Moving down from our mode selection keys, we have a standard keyboard. A couple of notes for the keyboard is you do use the shift button in conjunction with special characters. The caps lock is also an important thing to remember. The control shows up here that caps lock is on right now. You can turn it on and off. From there, we have our tab selection buttons. That's what these 2 are. You'll notice that when I hit the tab to the right, this tab will be selected. Next, we have page up and page down. These are useful when editing programs if you want to move through large chunks of program at a time. And then you have single line up, down, left, and right. Next, we have a number pad along with our mathematical functions displayed on. And then at the end, we have our backspace key. This is our cancel button also infamously known as the hot dog button. Next, we have right enter key. An important note to know the difference between backspace and cancel. So if we go to MDI and we were to type M03, backspace will delete one character, whereas cancel will remove it all. The enter right button is also important to note. So when you're in MDI, if you were to enter M03, it puts it in the MDI line and you have to hit right or enter to put it into the buffer. Next, we're going to cover the function keys and the soft keys. These correlate with each other, so they perform the same operation. So if I press the key on the screen, it's the same as pressing the key, the hard button below. The first of the function keys is going to be your information button. Inside your information button is your pocket manual. Your pocket manual is very handy for looking up G&M codes, program format, and alarms. If you have an active alarm on the machine and you press the information button, it'll automatically display that alarm along with the description. So you have function keys 1 through 8, and then at the end there's a button that we call the extend key. What the extend key does is display additional soft key options. So if I hit this, you're going to see there's new selections. And you can toggle all the way through until you get back to where you started. Moving to the lower section of the panel, we're going to start on the left side here. The first and most important button that you have is your emergency stop. Pressing this will stop all functions of the NC. Below that, we have our cycle start button, and then feed hold. Moving over, this is what we call our pulse hand wheel section of the control. The top portion is where you select the axes that you want to move with the pulse handle. Below that is where you select the increments that you want to move in. The first increment being 5 thou per click. Second is going to be 1 thou per click. And last is going to be 1/10 per click. It's important to remember that these functions are only available if we are in manual mode. Next, we have our pulse handle on-off button. So turning this on and off will activate this section of the panel. And then below that, we have W-axis movement forward and reverse. These two buttons are only available if your machine is equipped with an NC tailstock or a sub-spindle. Below that is our C-axis control movement. So these buttons are continuous feed jog buttons. So the center button is your C-axis connect. So if we hit this, it'll blink until the C-axis on the machine is engaged. Once it's engaged, we can continuously feed our C-axis. When we're done, we'll turn the C-axis off. Moving down to the panel below it, we have our continuous feed for our X, which is here. Z, If your machine is equipped with a Y-axis, this button will activate your Y. Then the corner buttons are your movement for your Y-axis. When you're ready to return your Y-axis to the center position, your cut position, or Y0, you can press this button in the lower right-hand corner and it'll automatically return to the center position. When it's at the center position, it will light up. When that button is lit up, you can turn the Y-axis back off. The next section of the panel, the first button we're going to see is our single block button. Single block allows a program to only read one line at a time when in auto mode. The next button is block skip. What that does, if that button is activated, it will skip any line of code in your program that has a / at the beginning of it. Next is dry run. Dry run allows the machine to move in rapid mode when it's reading feed moves. This is useful when the machine is in machine lock mode. Machine lock mode separates the control from the NC. So if you were to run a program while the machine is in machine lock, you will see the program being simulated in your graphics. You'll see your program running on your actual position tab. You'll see the code getting read, but the machine itself will not be moving. Sometimes if you have a large program, it's handy to use dry run so you're not waiting for the slower feed moves. Next, you have individual mode, A and B. These two buttons are only relevant on a machine that has an upper and a lower turret. If you wanted to run an A turret individually from a B turret, you could select one or the other. Next is optional stop. Optional stop will stop your program anytime it reads an M01. Then we have mid-auto manual. Mid-auto manual allows manual machine functions while being in auto or MDI mode. This can be very handy when interrupting a program mid-cycle. Eco idle stop. This will just put the machine into a power saving mode. Sequence restart. Sequence restart is applicable when you are trying to restart a program midway through. Next, we have this interlock release button. You will notice that some of these buttons are white. Any button that's white requires you to press interlock release before pressing that button. It's kind of a dual safety feature. Then we have all coolant off. It'll shut down all coolant functions of the machine that are currently on. The light button will shut the light off in the machine if you want to shut the light off. Coolant on will restart the coolant after you've shut it off. The air blow button will generally blow air out of the line that is above the spindle. Then we have this machine operation button. This is all the auxiliary functions of the machine. Next, we have our tool index, plus or minus. This button will index your turret in the positive or negative direction. Keep in mind, you can only index your turret if you're at the X limit of the machine. That is indicated when there is a green light next to the X axis on your distance to go display. The last two buttons to cover, if your machine is equipped with an auto door, then this button will open your door and this button will close it. This here is our feed and rapid override. On a P300, it is standard that your feed and rapid override are combined into one knob. As we move over on the control, you'll see a light here. Since this model is equipped with a main spindle and a sub-spindle, we can see that our main spindle is currently selected. When the main spindle is selected, any of these buttons that are down here are going to be impacted by the spindle that is currently selected. The first button we have is spindle stop, which will stop the spindle if it's rotating. The next button we have is spindle clamp. This is equivalent to a C-axis brake. It'll stop the spindle from being able to be rotated. Next, we have spindle counterclockwise and spindle clockwise. If your machine is in manual mode, these will start your spindle in whichever direction you select. Next, we have a jog button. The jog button will rotate the spindle without the machine being in C-axis mode. It'll rotate it continuously until you stop pressing it. The next button we have is a spindle index button. This will orient your main spindle, which is the equivalent to an M19. The two lights below that are going to indicate if your spindle 1 is in a clamped or unclamped state. And then the knob below this is your spindle speed override. If we move over to the right, you can see we have a spindle 2 with similar indicating lights telling us if it's in a clamped or unclamped state, along with the spindle override. If your machine has milling, it will have a panel that looks like this. Similarly, clockwise and counterclockwise will turn your milling spindle on, and the stop button will stop it. It's important to note that to utilize the jog function, your C-axis has to be active. So we can turn our C-axis on. With our C-axis active, we can jog our milling spindle similarly that we could to our turning spindle. The up and down arrow are your spindle speed override for your milling spindle. If your machine has a sub-spindle, this is the button you push when in manual mode to select spindle 2. When you press it, you can see that spindle 2 light is lit up here. Also, second spindle is displayed on the screen. If you're on a machine that has multiple turrets, like an A and a B turret, you will see an A turret here and a B turret here, and you will select them similarly to spindle 1 and 2. Next is our reset button. This will reset the machine to normal operations if it's in an alarm state. This button is your control on button. It turns the machine on when the main power is on. Also, if e-stop is depressed and you need to restart the machine to normal operation, you press control on to restart it. Below that is your control off button. You turn this off and this will power down your control before shutting off the main power on the machine. Next, we have an NC panel key. This will lock out functions of the machine based upon where it's set, depending on whether you have setup or operators running the machine. At the bottom here, we have our door interlock key. If this is turned to the off position, it will inhibit all machine movement while the door is open. Thanks for watching.